Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession on the world's #1 chiropractic podcast. Before we dive into this powerful episode, please remember to subscribe to our channels and give us a 5-star rating on iTunes to continue hustling. This episode is brought to you by Chiro HD, Evo Creative Media, 100% Chiropractic, Chiro Health USA, Imaging Services, Chiro Moguls, New Patients in a Box, Pure Chiro Notes, Titronics, Sherman College of Chiropractic, Life Chiropractic College West, Pro Hockey Chiros, Pro Baseball Chiros, and the IFCO. You can benefit from our full list of sponsors by visiting our sponsor page at chirohustle.com/sponsors. Links in the description. Now let's hustle.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 581 of the Chiro Hustle podcast. I'm your producer, Luke Millette, and here's your host, James Chester.
So today we have the opportunity of interviewing Dr. Jess Hambly. And if you want to hear a story about how she gets her patients to work with her and not her working for them, stay tuned. Welcome back. This is another episode of the Chiro Hustle podcast. Today we go across the Atlantic to the UK with Jess Hambly, originally from Australia. And we're going to have a nice talk today about chiropractic, and we're going to tell her story and tell the chiropractic story. And before we do that, I have to let everyone know our big why. Why do we do what we do over here at Chiro Hustle? Well, it's the mantra of the show. And it's we do protect freedom of speech with this show. We've never censored anyone. We actually know what it's like to be censored and shadow banned. It's real. So we'll never do that to anybody. We also believe in medical freedom and family health freedom. Because of this show, we are able to shine a huge spotlight on that for people. Very, very important for people to have a resource where they can go and hear somebody talk about something in a narrative that is chiropractic centered. And I think that if more people knew what we do, they would do what we do. So that's why we continuously perpetuate and tell the truth of chiropractic on the Chiro Hustle podcast. This is episode 581. We'll get philosophical. We do believe that there is a sacred trust in chiropractic, and we protect that. So if you guys don't know what that means or what that is, go and do a search right now. Stop this interview and go look for BJ Palmer's last words. You're going to learn more about chiropractic than you ever knew previously. I guarantee you, even if you're a chiropractor, go do it. I like supporting that. And we also have a firm belief in subluxation-based chiropractic. So that is front and center. And in tow of that, we believe in subluxation, and that gives us the connection of man, the physical, or woman, the physical, with the spiritual. And that's innate intelligence and universal intelligence. We believe that when man or woman, the physical, gets adjusted, it connects them to man or woman, the spiritual. And with that said, Dr. Jess, welcome to Chiro Hustle.
Oh, thank you for having me. It is a joy and an honor to be here. I'm really excited.
Well, thank you. It's really cool to do this and to be able to connect the dots of chiropractic for your friends, your family, patients, and people that may think that they have like an understanding who Dr. Jess is, but maybe you can reintroduce them to your why and why you got into this amazing profession in the first place, and maybe take us on a transition of where that started and where you are today.
Absolutely. Well, I think, I was one of those that I didn't have a cool chiropractic story before I started chiropractic. I'd never seen one. I didn't know what chiropractic was. And then I just knew I wanted to be in healthcare. I just knew I wanted to help people, which I think is a big calling to most chiropractors. And it wasn't until I went to a university open day in Australia and I saw chiropractic like in the health sciences section of the university, and I had no idea what it was. And I walked up to him and was like, "What's this?" And the guy there said to me, he's like, "Oh, well, what we're looking at is how your entire body works together as a whole." And it was so simple. And for me, that just made sense because I'm like, oh, great, because I didn't know if I was going to be into feet or teeth or ears or eyes or what branch of healthcare. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. Simple. And I think that was so helpful, even though it's such a basic, tiny little pigeon-eyed view of what chiropractic really is. But it was a good way to start for me. And I think that Then I got in and then had my first adjustment in my, like about halfway through my first year of chiropractic, because everyone there was telling me that you can't be here and not be getting adjusted. Like, you need to know what we do. And then, yeah, and it all started to fall into place from there. And I mean, even though where I studied was not particularly strong philosophically, I think it was a really good start and an introduction. And then, as most chiropractors will tell you, things then build as you start to actually get out and get your hands on people and learn and understand why. And I think initially I started with a why that was just very much, I want to help people and I want people to get better. And then that's really evolved in that, as you were saying, understanding that connection that chiropractic can bring. My why is now very much like, connected people make the world better. People connected to their joy, to the higher selves. Like, I want more of those people in the world, you know. And I think 2020 was a very good example of that, of needing more connected people in the world. And that's the goal now, is really like, I love just seeing people light up and really get in touch with who they are and what their purpose is, because that's what's just going to make everything better for all of us.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is a lot of times people think that it's just about chiropractors moving a bone.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
And the original chiropractors were bone setters. Like, and then it becomes this profession of chiropractic. And then we realized that when you start to adjust the bone, now you're freeing up and clearing out a person's neurological pattern that has a disconnect in it. And
Absolutely,
that fires the brain. That fires the brain. You know, and I think that a lot of times people, like, if we could just reintroduce people to it, say, look, it's a neurological profession. The bone is just part of it. The back is just part of it.
Yeah.
The functionality is the greatest part of it. The adaptability of the person is the greatest part of it.
Yeah.
So you were influenced to work in the some type of a healthcare system. And how did you decide that chiropractic was the right one? Like you said, you didn't know what you were going to do. You never been adjusted.
Exactly. I think there were so many aspects to healthcare, and chiropractic looked like it just incorporated it all. You know, like, rather than just honing in on one little area, that it actually, like, my God, I can look at everything in one profession. Fantastic. Like, that just makes the most sense to me. And I think, you know, being in it a little bit longer now, we know that sometimes the more specialized a particular aspect of healthcare is, often the more that other areas get blocked out. But really, you can't separate them.
Yeah, you know, I was having a chat before our call with a business partner of mine, and I was kind of explaining to him like how a chiropractor like focuses on a certain type of practice. I go, some will have a family practice, they'll take care of everybody. You know, some will have like a pediatric practice where all they want to do is take care of pregnant moms and babies. And if somebody comes in like me with like a low back like problem, you refer them to someone else. And I think that's really cool too, is you learn who you want to have as an ideal client. Cause you know, I asked you that like off camera, and you said you want people to work with you, not you just to work for them. And I think when you start to encapsulate, like, you are an active participant, once you have a chiropractor as your provider, like they don't have a magic wand to say, look, we're just going to shake this magic wand now and everything's better. Like, you have to like be an active participant. So it's really cool. It's really cool, the mindset that you shift people into as well. When you think about like marketing, growing a practice, what is some advice that you might be able to share after 16 years of experience? Things that worked well, things that didn't work well, and maybe some things that you're doing today that you love.
Yeah. Well, I think I've had the privilege of kind of being a professional associate for a lot of my chiropractic career. So I wouldn't consider myself marketing social media expert, but what I have found very useful in terms of, we work on our communication and the mindset. And, sometimes when you start to see that a lot of the people coming to see you are all stuck in one mindset, that's where you've got to communicate better. But I found that really, like, the key is telling people what you do, not just what you think they want to hear. That's been a really big one for me, because sometimes that means that people, like, sometimes, people walk in and crack this, crack that, and it's like, it's not what we do. And
Well,
that's, like,
well, do you think it's helped or diminished chiropractic with, people actually showing the adjustment on YouTube and TikTok and Reels?
That's a hard one, isn't it? I like that kind of thing has brought chiropractic a little bit more into awareness. And to be fair, I would rather that someone I cared about had a misunderstanding of chiropractic but still saw one than, took painkillers for the rest of their lives. So there's something to it. But yeah, you're right. It does. I think it does really create a false narrative that, people just want to be cracked like a glow stick and, not really getting the bigger picture of it. It's hard.
Yeah, when you sensationalize the profession, then
Mm.
then they come in and they say, "You do the ring dinger?" And you're like, "No, but you can go to Houston, Texas and get that done if that's what you want," you know?
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
I think, it has sensationalized it. And early on, this was like a debate with some of the people in my circle, and I'd be like, "You know what? Keep it sacred. Like, don't
Mm.
show the adjustment." Like, I always thought that you should keep that sacred. Like, you can talk anything else, but that part doesn't need to be the part that we make as like the focal point for the public, because the adjustment is sacred, and it is a big thing when it comes down to it, and we shouldn't just give that away so easily as like what that is. And I think, everybody has their own opinion about, social media,
Mm.
but now we're getting a type of person that shows up that says, "Do it that way."
Yeah. That's it. Dance, monkey, dance. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Back to people working with you and not you working for them. There also has to be like that barrier of, you don't go into like a surgical center and say, "Look, I've been watching surgical videos. I want you to do that thing, and
Yeah.
that's the way I want you to perform on me today. You got it?
Yeah.
Great, let's get to work."
That's such a good example. Yeah.
And for me, I always, go in and I let the doc practice their art. And I know that's what you guys hone your skills for, whether it's you doing applied kinesiology, neuro-emotional technique work, finding out like how to get people to start rewiring their subconscious. Because I
Mm.
think a lot of this is really all nervous system based. And if you can start doing the muscle tests like you do with applied kinesiology, you can see where the body's not firing. And
Absolutely.
then
Yeah.
you make the adjustment, you post check and you say, "Hey, look, we cleared that out. That's stronger now, right?" You can tell.
Yeah.
So, I think that if people just knew that you should just, totally let the doc take over and not have any type of idea of, input, just be a patient. Go in, and let the doctor be the doctor. So, yeah, that's
Mm.
kind of like marketing for me, is like, have we gone too far with
Yeah.
what we're doing, and how do we course correct if we had? How do we go back and say, "Look, we've done it wrong."
Yeah.
Like, how do
That's the
we
point,
go,
right?
yeah, how do we go back and make it better? But, let's go into the next roll of question.
Mm.
Health matters to chiropractors. So
Yeah.
maybe you could share with people what you do for your health and how you take care of yourself to be, the best that you can be.
Absolutely. I mean, let's start with the obvious, right? I get adjusted. Like, it's really important. I got adjusted today because I wanted to be, clear for the interview. It's just, and I really like now that having been under care for 16, well, 21 years now, if I include being at university, that it really is like about like, oh, I'm in a really crabby mood today. Like, I need an adjustment, or like, I just need to get checked because I know that's keeping me healthy rather than looking into the symptoms of it. And just on what you were saying before with allowing the doc to practice their art, like I get adjusted by different docs that I work with. And yeah, you don't tell the other doc how to do it. You lie down, you let them check, and everyone's got their own art form. And I know that I'm connected when I get off the table, and that's the main thing. Yes, it's so important.
You made it to Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession on the world's #1 chiropractic podcast. This episode is brought to you by Chiro HD, Evo Creative Media, 100% Chiropractic, Chiro Health USA, Imaging Services, Chiro Moguls, New Patients in a Box, Pure Chiro Notes, Titronics, Sherman College of Chiropractic, Life Chiropractic College West, Pro Hockey Chiros, Pro Baseball Chiros, and the IFCO. You can benefit from our full list of sponsors by visiting our sponsor page at chirohustle.com/sponsors. Links in the description. Now let's hustle. Well, that's a narrative that needs to be front and center for all people. Like, hey, you're going to go see the chiropractor. Like, this is how they practice.
Yeah.
You know, one of my mentors, he's like, yeah, there's this really busy NET office. He's an NET practitioner also. And he would tell me, like, this guy has a sign in his office that says, it could take up to an hour to get the best services. If you don't feel like that, you would like to wait around, you're free to go somewhere else.
I mean, that's it. If you're clear on what you do and how you do it, then that's the best way to go. Yeah.
So you said that you've been a professional associate.
Yes.
So how did the clinics that you worked with or at stay connected to the local communities? And was that some of your responsibility to do?
Yeah, I mean, health talks have always been a big one for the ones that I've worked with, like getting out and chatting and, fairs. And I think you had a great term for it in one of your podcasts. We went and did screenings, but you're talking about like harvesting the community, which I thought was such a great term for that. So a lot of those are a big one. I think I love talks. Because I think when someone comes to a chiropractor for the first time, there's so much information. We're looking at the body in such a unique way, in a way that I don't think any other profession does in the same way we do. So I think sometimes that information overload, people take on so little of it. There are still chiropractors. We're still getting our head around philosophy. Takes the practice folks a while. So I think the talks are wonderful to just continue to grow that seed and be like, this is what we're looking for. We're actually, I know you want to be heard, but we're not about your pain. We're about how well you're functioning. And we want to see what your body does with an adjustment. Sometimes that'll feel amazing and sometimes it won't, but we're trusting that that's what your body needs at that moment. Like, really like to get that message out there.
Yeah. I mean, it took me a decade to even understand the word innate. So
absolutely. Yes.
To bring somebody in that's never been to an office before, and to like say you're going to the auto mechanic and they're saying, hey, we're going to do your brake pads. Your brake pads are thin. We got to fix them. You're like, great, do it. And then they're like, yeah, so we had to pull this caliper here and we have to like make sure that we get the rotation of the pad on the right way. So when you go to 40, it doesn't lock up on you. And then, then you get to the stop sign and then it releases, whatever it might be. But that's the way chiropractors, I feel like sometimes they get so passionate about the process. The patient just wants to get the adjustment and make sure that they know what to do and come see us again. But I think we really want to like sometimes over educate, but
yeah.
but at the end of the day, people need that connection too, because if you look at the other model of what they're used to, they get 3 minutes with somebody that doesn't touch them.
Absolutely. Like I don't know what it was like in the States. Here when we had lockdown, like all of the healthcare, it was like Zoom, it was online. I'm like, how are you getting care for anything without somebody putting their hands on you? That's madness. Like,
yeah. And that's a huge component to the chiropractic method is it's, my buddy goes down and does mission trips and they call them the touch healers. down in Haiti. And I think that if people like thought of chiropractic like that in the States, they're
Yeah.
they're touch healers. They're not moving the bones. They are, but you put your hands on people, and there's a huge component to people healing. You know, the amount of like human touch that we actually have that goes on, we're so disconnected from like the energy of other people. So when they actually come into your trust and you start adjusting their neck, and you start like, you know, doing different types of adjustments to their low back, like it's an intimate thing that requires a lot of understanding of what you're doing, why you're doing it. And then they have to, like you said, they have to participate with you. So lots of cool stuff. In the future,
Yeah.
like let's look through the next phase of where chiropractic's heading.
Mm.
If you had any type of reality that you could share with us, what you think might happen over the next 5, 10, 20 years, where do you see chiropractic going?
Oh. Well, I mean, I can definitely say where I'd like to see it going, because I think even over the last 10 years, 5 years in practice, I've noticed a really big shift in people having less of a trust in medication. I remember, like, when I first started out, you ask someone in their first visit, what medication are you on? And you're sitting there and you're typing away for like 5 minutes as people list everything off. And so much more now, I find people come in and they're like, oh, no, I don't want to take that stuff. I know it's not going to help. I know it's going to make me sick. Like, especially when it comes to painkillers and anti-inflammatories and things, is people know, like, they have a better understanding that that's a symptom cover up. It's not really getting to the cause of it. They know that once they're on it, that tends to be the only way forward, and they want a different answer. And so I think what I'm hoping now is that people see us more in their, they know they put emergency care in its right place, and they put healthcare in its right place. And like, right, I need to be well. I need to look after my body. I want to do more of what I love and what's important to me for the long term. That's where I go to for the chiropractor. It's like, oh, I broke my leg, I need to go to the hospital. Like, but they understand the difference.
Well, they should call it what it is. They should call it pill care,
Yeah, right.
and they should call it healthcare. And they've hijacked healthcare and have converted it into pill care.
Yeah.
And I think that if people just knew that there was a different choice, they'd be like, yeah, I want to try that first. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's I think the direction that it is already headed, and I don't know how long it would take to get that wider consciousness, but gosh, I'd love to see that within my career. That would be incredible.
Um, so you went to school in Australia. Um,
Yeah.
who has been some influence on you? Some heroes that you've had along the way, some people that have mentored you. How did you become who you are 16 years into the profession?
Oh, wow. I think the biggest shift actually happened in that transition from Australia to the UK. And amazingly, you have interviewed a lot of my mentors, which has been incredible. So I think my first real introduction was with Anna Esteveste. She explained vitalism to me in a really beautiful way, in a way that I thought I understood it and then got a much deeper understanding. So she came and she was just doing a technique seminar at the clinic that I was working at, and started explaining the difference between healing from the inside out and then from the outside in a natural way. And it was such a light bulb moment for me. I'm like, oh my gosh, I've been like trying to put the solution on somebody in a natural way for the last 10 years. Like, I've never really looked at the person as already being whole and have everything they need. And we're just helping to release that. And I remember I went up to her after the seminar and I'm like, we need to have more conversations. And 4 years later, we still talk twice a month. So like, she was incredible. And then through her, I met Stu Bittman, also incredible, loving, peaceful power force for chiropractic. I adore him. And then especially when COVID happened, and I felt like I was dealing with a lot of angry people and angry energy and fear-based stuff for a lot of the time. He was just the most wonderful antidote to that, about, if we want to see more love in the world, we got to be more love. We got to be connected to that, to ourselves and our heart and our wholeness. And again, that's a journey that he and I have been on ever since. So There's some big ones. And I think I've also really admire Heidi Horvick and the work that she's been doing to just give people the information and the research and the certainty behind what we do. I think she's incredible.
Well, you know, there is that part where we have to like start to find out once we know stuff, who can
Mm,
help us refine the knowledge, who can
yeah,
help us make sense of why we have these beliefs. And it's important to find people that have been there before us. You know, in chiropractic, a lot of times they'll say that we stand on the shoulders of giants.
yeah,
And I've been doing a lot of work with local state associations this past year, like California this past weekend, Colorado, Pennsylvania, South Carolina. I'm going to Georgia next month. And I start getting like a vibe that we need to participate with each other more. You
yeah,
know, and I urge people to create a list of all chiropractors and their 10-mile radius and
yeah,
reach out to them and start doing like a collaborative, like monthly philosophy gathering, call it the big idea gathering, and get everybody together and start to have fellowship and start to connect again and start to adjust each other and start to realize that you guys are a lot more similar than you are different, and that it's okay to build a community of chiropractors, and that there doesn't have to be some weird division just because they're a chiropractor in your city and there's some scarcity mindset. Like, I really believe that
mm,
having mentors locally, even,
yeah.
and friends that are in the same profession is healthy.
Absolutely. There's always more chiropractors than people. Like, why are we competing? Like, let's go. Yeah. And I think that's the beautiful thing about chiropractic being the art form, in that because you'll never see a chiropractor, like two chiropractors working the same way, it means that there's so many roads for people to find us if we wanted to work together rather than, kind of shoot each other down.
Yeah, and it just makes for a healthier profession. And
Yeah.
I urge every chiropractor to have, you know, 4 lunches a month with other chiropractors, and just to, you know, even if it's awkward, just do it. Like you, like, you know,
Yeah.
just see what's possible. And, you know, like, I think that when people start doing more connection, then there's more reality for the profession of where we can take it together. Because having people that live on an island, expecting them to be able to do it and build that community together is impossible. We have to come together. So,
Yeah.
and support your national organizations, support like the IFCO, support them, support the ICA, like support these organizations, but also support your local chapters, you know, your state associations. I think, you know, those are the ways that you can, you know, make a better future for chiropractic, to be honest, is
Oh,
to support with your three things: time, talent, and treasure. And if you can't do it with your time, then pay your dues. And if you can, you know, give some of your time to the organization, it will give back to you too. So I think that that's really important, but do it local too. You don't
yeah.
have to like have something like national sanctioned or state sanctioned. You can just have chiropractic gatherings.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I've already been a part of some of those here. There's a great group locally called the Chiro Calling that have just started doing monthly philosophy nights. And I've been to a couple of, they're incredible. Like, it's just so great to find, you said, yeah, find community. So
Well,
learn from each other.
then you can figure out how to refer to each other, work with each other. If, you know, somebody needs coverage, now there's a friend in like that can help. And I
Yeah.
think that support is essential for chiropractors. So yeah. So closing out today, um, I'm sure you've seen some miracles over your course of your career. Maybe you could share with us 1 to 2 miracle stories to send us off today.
Oh, let's do that. That always feels good, doesn't it? Yeah, I thought about that. And I think, like a lot of chiropractors, there's always the like, oh, which miracle do I pick? And I love that that's the problem that I had with this with this question. But the one that always I think sticks out for me, because I hadn't been in practice very long, like 5 years or less. I had in Australia, I looked after a dad that then turned out looking after his wife. Then the wife fell pregnant. I looked after her through her entire pregnancy, and she had this beautiful little girl. And I think when she was 4 or 5 months old, the doctor said, oh, she's got hip dysplasia. So we're going to have to put her in a spica cast. And so those ones where they, relocate the hips and cast them in, and then they stay casted for 6 months. I think they told her 6 months plus, like this little girl was going to be in a cast. And the mum was an early childhood teacher. Like, she knew about hitting milestones. She knew how important that was. And she's like, well, if she can't crawl and she can't get her cross crawl, like, how's she going to develop? And I was like, yeah, that's a big question. And she's like, what do we do? And I was like, well, they wanted to do it a month. She came in and they wanted to put her daughter in a cast in a month. And I said, well, we've got a month. I can check her twice a week. We can get her nervous system working as well as it possibly can. And then if she's in the cast, we help her adapt to that. Like, we just make sure that her body's getting as much feedback as it possibly can. So I checked on her daughter twice a week, which is probably the most I've ever seen a little one that age, only a few months old. And then they went into the hospital and they sedated her daughter, and the mum and dad are sitting out in the waiting room, and they were kind of getting ready for it. And the doctor came out and said, daughter's fine. Like, we don't need to put her in the cast. Her hips look great. They move, there's no problem. And I thought, like, that's incredible. And I had all of these, the mum was so excited. She made YouTube videos for the practice and couldn't stop telling anyone. And then I, subsequently adjusted her next 2 children. But I had all of these chiros get in contact with me and they're like, well, what did you do? And I'm like, well, I don't have a hip dysplasia adjustment. Like, it's not a specific adjustment for an issue. I just checked it, and then her body was able to find its balance. Whatever they found wrong, her body corrected. Like, and that's going to be different for every baby. But I think that would have made such a huge difference to her neurological development to not have been casted and rigid for those super important early months of her life. And then, like I said, being able to then adjust the family. And then I grew with that family in practice right up until I moved to the UK. And they always hold a special place in my heart, those guys. So that was really cool.
I do a ton of marketing events, and there's a moment where I was at my booth and this lady comes up and she has a child that's like really not really responsive and just kind of like in the stroller. And she's like, I could tell that she's like had like years of stress just because the baby isn't like, adapting to life. And I was just like, you know what? Come in and see us. Just come in and see us. Just let me be your advocate today. Just come see us and bring your kid, like bring this little child, this non-responsive child to the clinic. And I was like, just pay for you. The doc would be happy to see what we can do for the kid too.
Yeah.
And I think that if people just knew, they wouldn't live in like this like fear.
Yeah.
And a lot of times people think it's a medical procedure that needs to be done. No, there needs to be pressure off the nerve to let the body to have the innate flow. And I think that if more people knew what chiropractors do, then they would be chiropractic advocates, patients, and they would send everybody that they know to at least get checked by a chiropractor. So at the end of episode 581, Dr. Jess, is there anything I didn't ask you that you'd like to share with our audience today?
Oh, no, I think that was just a really beautiful conversation. Thank you. I love being able to chat about this stuff. And I think really just, like you said, tell the story, let people know that like you're doing the healing. You find a chiropractor, like we're all good. I think if you've got a chiropractor again that wants to work with you, they're not the hero in the room. You are. They're just going to unlock that for you. And if you can find someone that respects the power of your body, that's it. Go and make them part of your healthcare, your health team. It's just, I cannot, there's no one that wouldn't benefit from it. And I can't see why anyone would ever regret it. So,
well, like they always say, 9/10 of it's showing up. And when we show up for each other, then that's when miracles happen. And I think that's the takeaway is when people show up and participate, the miracle can happen.
Yeah.
We just have to get through the subluxation above the atlas first. And
a big one.
That's one of the hardest things to do is get through and say, look, this is for you and we can help you. And the reason most people don't go to the chiropractor, because I've done so much marketing for chiropractors, is they honestly just don't know where to go or who to trust. So if they come in and you can build that trust with them, now you can help them.
Yeah, it's so true.
All right. Well, if people want to get in touch with you or connect with you, where do we send them to?
Send them to my Instagram. Absolutely. I'm on social media far more often than I should be. So Dr. Jess Chiro, Dr. Jess _Chiro. You will always be able to find me there.
All right. So check out Dr. Jess Hambly at Dr. Jess _Chiro on Instagram. I really appreciate you being with us today. You're episode 581 of the Chiro Hustle podcast. I'll close up by telling everyone you're just one story away. Keep hustling. I'll see you guys on the next episode. Have a great evening over in the UK, and I'll have a great day over here in Colorado.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
All right. Bye for now.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Chiro Hustle. Don't forget to subscribe and check back next week to continue hustling.